Hello, welcome back to the Rich Fritzke Show. Pleasure to have you back with me or to have you with me for the first time. Always a pleasure, always a blessing. We're all struggling today, all of us, no matter how fortunate or brave or determined we may be. And while I've already done a piece on COVID-19 and peace that I hold tight to, I here intend, because struggle is clearly our common denominator, to speak a bit about suffering. Yes, today, but also struggles and challenges past that just might help us see some light. To begin with, I'm going to go back to Newark, New Jersey, where my long commute from Hackensack to Seton Hall Prep in South Orange took me on the 31 bus, which cut right through the heart of the Central Ward, where the most devastated and the poorest of poor lived. But my long path first took me to Penn Station, where so very early I'd get a cup of coffee and a muffin. When a junior, I befriended an older African-American homeless man who just happened to share my name, Rich on Rich. Now initially, I had done all I could to avoid him, but in time he corralled me, and my one cup of coffee became two, and we'd split the muffin. With his streetwise wisdom, Monday through Friday, he put on a show for free, teaching and preaching, and I can still hear those dulcet tones of his "Rich, my boy, some days it rains and some days it pours, and some days the sky just opens up and shits all over you. But tomorrow, tomorrow is gonna be another bright, sunshiny day." After a few months, Rich just disappeared, as if those mean streets just opened up and collapsed upon him. The muffin never tasted quite the same, and I sorely missed and thought often of him over the years. This sweetest of men, who indeed was one of Mother Teresa's Jesus in the humblest of disguises. The suffering homeless for me then took on a face. The summer of '67 that followed mattered, as I wound up in Newark during the riots, when 27 were killed and more than 100 were wounded. Yes, I was in Newark when Langston Hughes's "Raisin in the Sun" met its "Or Does It Explode?" And I was forever awoken, yes, awoken by the "Stop, hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going round" of it. The suffering of poverty, injustice, racism, joblessness, urban blight, they all took on a face. And then, too, there was my later work with Newark's Mayor Ken Gibson, where I discovered that no matter the endemic problem, from maternal mortality to fetal mortality to homelessness to poverty to math and verbal test scores to levels of population incarcerated to malnutrition to all the rest, Newark topped the charts nationwide. No matter the hurting, the people of Newark simply hurt a little bit more. And suffering's face, hell, it became the entire city of Newark. No matter where I went in life, I'd find it again. Stories for another day, and all living still. And now an awkward but necessary detour to suffering that was personal. For I could have died at the age of 25, beaten to a pulp with bats and pipes by a virulent and crazed, white and racially insane East Boston mob, as the plug was pulled on 20 years of racist demagoguery, and forced busing to achieve racial integration began. Unconscious, I was found the next morning in a dumpster in a back alley at Maverick Square Station. Now I could well have died, but I didn't, and I am still here. I should definitely have died when the Neisseria meningitis struck in 2005, during those first 24 hours, when more than 90% of those it strikes do. The doctors told Maggie that I wouldn't survive that night, but I did, and I defied the odds, and for a long time, and I am still here. 6 weeks into a coma They told Maggie that even if I were to awake, I would neither recognize her nor my children nor anyone else in my life, nor ever again be able to utter a cognitive thought. They told her that the meningococcal bacteria had fried the neocortex of my brain. It always does. But not with me. It didn't. And I am still here. I could have died when I was packed in ice with fevers that topped out daily at 106 or 107 for about 6 weeks. But I didn't. And I am still here. I could have died from the acute renal shock that sent my creatinine level beyond that of a human being's ability to sustain life. After a day where I had quite insanely kept singing "One Day More" from Les Miserables, before Maggie and Laura rushed me back to my then home away from home, Morristown Hospital. Yes, I could have, but I didn't, and I am still here. I could have died when my kidney transplant was immediately greeted by a pulmonary embolism. At least they feared that I might, but I didn't. And I am still here, and some feared that I was done when a fall out of my wheelchair, a brain injury, left me unable to comprehend or communicate in any meaningful way for some 10 days during December of 2017. But I surprised them again. I came back, and I am still here. The point? Suffering notwithstanding, I have been blessed. Blessed mightily, sustained. I am the impossible and the improbable, just as you are, just as we all are. I've caught so many breaks, and I imagine so too have you. For these sufferings were either outright subdued or tempered, and I have been able to live on the high ground, in love and peace, in hope, where we all must need live. But certainly this was not the case for some. Not Walter Scott of Charlestown or Freddie Gray of Baltimore or Sam DuBose of Cincinnati or Philando Castile of St. Anthony or Terence Crutcher of Tulsa and dozens upon dozens of others in recent years, all of whom are among the either questionably or insanely dead by cop because their skin just happened to be black. And there's Eric Gasner, Michael Brown, and today's Ahmaud Arbery, all dead by the color of their skin, dead by white supremacism, a hatred, one race unto another, that has been mind-numbingly going on for 10,000 years, one race to another. 52 years after Martin went up to that mountaintop, claimed the victory, and was appallingly taken from us. There is the all of this evil still in our country, where we are all endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. And then there is COVID-19, with which we are all confronted. And there is extreme poverty. But COVID-19 is the great contemporary crucible, from which suffering and loss, tears and pain take their daily measure. Right there with you, where even hope and faith often bleed out. For while victories are prayed for, they are often not won. And with each death, we all have to die many times. Many serve and do battle, but for most, prayer alone has to be enough. For some, courage alone. And for some, it's enough just to be holding on. Yes, suffering stares us in the face. Back in the day, back in the 50s, my Aunt Mary Varick, crippled from birth and Catholic to the bone, took aim at another realm where suffering abides. She founded the Our Lady of Fatima First Saturday Club and invited the disabled of all shapes and stripes to get out of the institutions and hospitals and homes where they had long been shut in, and to come back to life and to breathe the free air in the 50s. At any given time, hundreds of handicapped of all faiths took advantage, and on one pilgrimage to the great shrines of Europe, she took, believe it or not, 66 in wheelchairs, 5 on stretchers, and some other 30 victims of everything from blindness to cerebral palsy. A truly saintly woman, her response to her own disability and suffering was to celebrate what she called her treasured place at the foot of the cross with them. We all know that cross well today, and it's not merely the wood of Calvary, but all of the sin, evil, greed, and hatred in our broken world. The cross is, yes, the violent bigotry that takes out the Ahmaud Arbery's, COVID-19, extreme poverty and hatred, greed, pride, ignorance. Among my aunt's troop, there was one whose suffering was truly over the top, but who loved and lived louder even than any of the saints and poets. Beyond extraordinary, her name was Jeanette. A few years older than me, she lived all of her abbreviated life in bed or upon a stretcher, for she was unable to move even a single muscle below her neck. Horrific enough, but she also was blind. And yet I promise you this, she was amazingly among the happiest of people. Beautiful, just beautiful. She wore a beaming smile that brightened days, and no one dared utter the word sorry around her. She would suffer no one's pity. She lived 1 block away from Holy Rosary Church in Jersey City, where the bells back then rang on the hour. And that was her signal, whenever alone, to begin praying for the next intention on her always long prayer list. Extremely disabled, but spiritually thriving, she lived and carried the cross with rare strength and high zest. She quite literally sacrificed all. Her life was, in fact, sacrifice personified. And she was, as my aunt often said, more powerful than Joan of Arc. She passed 50 years ago now, but she's still my hero. Jeanette, who was living grace, reminds us that despite our overarching worries and fears and even tears today, that grace still abounds, touching each and every one of us. Doctors, nurses, aides, postmen, clerks, first responders, all exude grace and transform and save patients, all who care about them, and all of us. And we are bound as never before by the knowledge that we are indeed, and sacredly so, our brothers and sisters' keepers. Saint Mother Teresa, who took on the wounds and tears and brokenness of tens upon tens of thousands of people, once told my Aunt Mary, her friend, in a moment of doubt and great sadness, "You are all right, Mary. You are all right. It is only the kiss of Christ." Or so too the kiss of God, or Allah, or Yahweh, or Divine Mother, or soever you pray to. The kiss of soul, of spirit, of angels and friends. In your own great work today, whether you are on the front lines where the bleeding out is, or forever explaining to your children why it is that you can't go out for the ice cream, or go to see the cousins. Whenever you grow weary, tired, and frustrated, because you long for more and are unsatisfied, when you are at that convergence of hope and faith, and either healing or despair, yes, in those moments when frustration and doubt set in, and longed for expectations and outcomes leave you longing and empty, and so much so as to give way to a tangible physical pain or breathless anxiety, please, please know you are all right. You are all right. It is only the kiss of Christ. Okay, so nothing you do is easy today, and everything you do is hard. But yet you are this day a king or a queen, in that you, that's you in all caps, are the last best hope of everyone who depends upon you, needs, loves, or likes you. Anyone you serve in any way, however small, however large, everyone to whom you belong. In a conversation with a friend of mine, an alcoholic who was 20 years clean, we were talking about how he managed. And he said, "Rich, I just wake up each morning and I stare at the same damn mountain in front of me. Then I pick up the shovel and I just start digging." Just a thought for all of us today. No matter our suffering, no matter our struggle, it ain't over till it's over. And the sun is beaming brightly today. Pick up the shovel, start digging, keep the faith, move the mountains, and no matter your reservations, cry out, "Joy to the world, for joy cometh in the morning." I so wish you peace. May you find your measure of peace and joy this week. And I'll look forward to being back with you the next time. Thank you so much, and please, please take care.